Have you ever helped someone when you knew you would get absolutely nothing in return? No reward, no recognition, and not even a simple thank you. Most people are willing to be kind when it costs them nothing. But what happens when kindness demands a sacrifice? What happens when helping a stranger means giving away the little you have left for yourself and your family? This is the story of Amara, a widow, a mother, and a woman who fought every single day just to survive. Life had not been easy for her. After losing her husband, she became responsible for everything. Every morning before sunrise, she walked long distances to the market carrying vegetables on her head, hoping to earn enough money to feed her children. Every evening, she returned home exhausted, often with barely enough money to buy food for the next day. Her daughter was close to being forced out of school because of unpaid fees, and her young son often went without the things children his age should have. Despite all of this, Amara never stopped working and never stopped believing that somehow tomorrow would be better. One evening, after a particularly difficult day at the market, Amara counted the few crumpled notes she had earned. The money was barely enough to buy a small meal for her family. As she walked home along the dusty road, she noticed a man sitting alone beneath an old tree. His clothes were dirty, his face was covered in dust, and he looked weak from hunger. People walked past him without stopping. Some ignored him completely, while others laughed and called him a beggar. Amara continued walking at first because she had her own problems to worry about. But after a few steps, something inside her made her stop. She turned around and looked at the stranger again. The sun was beginning to set, the food stalls were closing, and she knew that if nobody helped him, he would probably go hungry that night. Without fully understanding why, Amara walked back to a nearby food vendor and spent part of her remaining money on a plate of rice. The vendor looked surprised and asked if the food was for her. Amara shook her head and pointed toward the stranger. Immediately, people around her began to laugh. They told her she was foolish. They reminded her that she could barely feed her own children. Some even said that people like her stayed poor because they cared too much about others. Amara ignored every word. She took the food and placed it in front of the stranger. For a moment, he simply stared at it as though he couldn't believe what had happened. Then he looked up at her and smiled. It wasn't the desperate smile of a beggar. It was calm, confident, and strangely dignified. He thanked her softly and then said something she would never forget. The world often forgets good people, but life never does. Amara didn't understand what he meant, but those words stayed in her mind long after she walked away. That night, she returned home to the reality of her difficult life. Her daughter, Leah, was studying under a weak lamp, trying to prepare for school despite the constant fear of being forced to leave because of unpaid fees. Her son, Daniel, was asleep in the corner of the room. As Amara prepared their simple meal, she thought about the money she had spent on the stranger. Surprisingly, she felt no regret. The next morning, however, the entire village was talking about what she had done. News spread quickly. People laughed at her generosity and called her irresponsible. A wealthy woman named Mrs. Grace openly mocked her in the market, saying that kindness could not pay bills or solve poverty. Amara listened quietly and continued her work. Over the following weeks, life became even harder. Her vegetable sales dropped. Daniel became seriously ill and needed medicine that cost more money than she had. The small savings she had put aside for Leah's education disappeared almost overnight. Yet despite all these problems, Amara refused to give up. She woke up every morning and continued working. Then one day, Leah told her about a scholarship examination that could completely change their future. The scholarship would cover her education, but there was one problem. The examination was being held in another town, and they couldn't afford the transportation cost. Once again, Amara faced what seemed like an impossible situation. Still, she refused to surrender. She borrowed small amounts of money from friends and neighbors until she finally gathered enough for Leah to travel and take the exam. Days turned into weeks. While they waited for the scholarship results, strange rumors began spreading through nearby villages. Luxury vehicles had been seen traveling from town to town. Important-looking people were asking questions about a mysterious stranger who had received help from someone in the area. Nobody knew who the stranger was or why these people were searching for him. The rumors grew bigger every day. Some thought it involved politicians. Others believed it was connected to wealthy businessmen. No one knew the truth. Then, one Thursday morning, everything changed. A convoy of black SUVs rolled into the village and stopped near the market. The sight immediately attracted a crowd. Traders left their stalls. Children ran toward the road. Villagers gathered to watch. Several well-dressed officials stepped out and requested a meeting with the village chief. After a brief conversation, the chief turned toward the crowd and called out a single name, Amara. Confused whispers spread through the crowd as everyone looked toward her. Slowly, she stepped forward. Her heart pounded as she approached the vehicles. Then the door of the largest SUV opened. The man who stepped out was the same stranger she had fed beneath the tree. The crowd fell silent. But this time he wasn't wearing dusty clothes. He was dressed in an expensive suit and surrounded by security personnel. The villagers stared in disbelief. The stranger walked directly toward Amara and then did something nobody expected. He bowed respectfully before her. A gasp swept through the crowd. The man introduced himself as Victor Kingsley, the founder of one of the country's largest charitable organizations. He explained that he had been traveling secretly through rural communities to understand how ordinary people lived. During his journey, he had intentionally traveled without revealing his identity. He wanted to see how people treated someone who appeared poor and powerless. Hundreds of people had ignored him. Many had insulted him. But only one person had stopped to help. Amara. Victor turned toward the crowd and said, "She helped me when she believed I had nothing to offer her. That is true character." Many villagers lowered their heads in shame. They remembered laughing at her. They remembered mocking her kindness. Victor then announced that he intended to help the woman who had shown him genuine compassion. He arranged for her debts to be cleared, her business to receive financial support, and her home to be repaired. Then came the biggest surprise of all. Victor's organization was connected to the scholarship program Leah had applied for. The results had already been finalized. Leah had not only passed the examination, but had achieved the highest score in the entire district. Amara burst into tears. Months of struggle, fear, sacrifice, and uncertainty seemed to disappear in a single moment. Leah hugged her mother tightly while Daniel jumped with excitement. The villagers watched in complete silence. They had spent weeks criticizing a woman for helping a stranger. Now they were witnessing the reward for a decision they had called foolish. It wasn't really about the money or the opportunities. It was about something deeper. It was about character. It was about choosing kindness when there was no reason to expect anything in return. From that day forward, the story of Amara became a lesson told throughout the village. People remembered how a poor widow with almost nothing had given food to a hungry stranger, while others walked away. They remembered how the same people who laughed at her eventually stood speechless before the truth. Most importantly, they remembered that true kindness is not measured by how much you give, but by what you are willing to sacrifice for someone else. Sometimes the smallest act of compassion can create a chain of events that changes a life forever. And sometimes, when you choose to do the right thing, even when nobody is watching, the world has a way of rewarding you in ways you never imagined. If this story touched your heart, remember this lesson. Your character is revealed not by how you treat powerful people, but by how you treat those who have nothing to offer you. A simple act of kindness can change someone's entire life. And sometimes, it can change your own. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment below with the words "kindness always wins," and share this story with someone who needs a little hope today. Until next time, stay kind, stay humble, and never underestimate the power of doing the right thing.